Okay, let's get started. So thanks very much for being on time. Really appreciate you spending your afternoon with me. We're looking at one of the big things in property, and something that property isn't really that well known for when you're looking at getting into bigger deals. The bigger the deals you get into, the worse your cash flow generally, because cash flow is generally a sort of thing that you can generate from one property over a period of time. But the bigger the deals that you get into, the more difficult that becomes. But everyone's interested in getting into big deals in property. So how do you balance those two things off? And I'm going to have a look at some of the stuff that we've done in the past, that we are doing now, and some of the stuff that we offer out to our franchisees to help them build their cash flow. We'll get into the reasons about why we're taking care of cash flow and why we've got a webinar specifically about cash flow in just a second. But as I'm going to go through this, actually, before I go any further, could you just put in either the chat box or the Q&A box, if you just jump in there and let me know that you can hear me, so that I know that I'm coming through loud and clear. That would be fantastic. So what I'd like you to do is, if you've got any questions, please feel free to jump in with any questions or at any point during the presentation. But when you jump in with a question, if you could please put your question in the Q&A section, because if you put it in the Q&A section, I have to answer that question before I can move on to the next question. If you put it in the chat box, that's just a constant stream of text. So I might miss some questions if you put it in the chat box, but if you put it in the Q&A box, then I'll definitely see it. So a little bit about me. Why am I the right person to be sitting here talking to you about cash flow and about generating anything from property, really? Well, before I started with Sourced, I'd founded and run and grown my own businesses in a few different business sectors. And generally, the businesses that I've built have been from absolute zero. So I've been in this position not only with property, but in other business sectors where the first thing that you're looking to do is build your cash flow to provide you with that stable foundation of security before you then move on and move into bigger deals. Just looking at property on its own, I've been involved in deals from £55,000 up to 150 million. So I've got a good range of experience looking at very, very different property deals, long timelines, short timelines, lots of work, not much work. A huge amount of stuff that's gone on in the properties that I've done as well. I've executed lots of different strategies. So the strategies that we teach here at Source, the way that we look at property and we encourage our franchisees to look at property, I've executed the majority of them for myself, and the ones that I haven't done myself, I have helped other people navigate through. Because essentially with property, once you understand how property works, once you understand finance, once you understand contracts, it all becomes a lot clearer, and the available possibilities and the available different ways that you can structure deals becomes much more apparent to you. So what I do now is I head up the franchise side of Source. Source has got a couple of different businesses, but I head up the franchise side of Source. We've got 150 franchisees. We've got a comprehensive training platform. We've got training online. We've got training face-to-face for our franchisees. We've got loads of different things that we do for them because we want them to make decisions like we make decisions. And the way that we make decisions is from our experience, is about building your business in the right way. A lot of people come into property, and when they get into property, they think, I'm in property, let's go after that big deal. I know somebody that made £1 million out of their first deal. And, that's all well and good. But if you look at the statistics, the people that come into property and they're able to execute that scale of deal on their first go are few and far between. You're far better off at looking at property like any other business and looking after your cash flow first. Because if you look after your cash flow, you've guaranteed your the life of your property business. It means that if you go after that one big deal and that one big deal doesn't come off, you put all of your eggs in one basket, and potentially you could run out of money before you can find another deal to replace the one that hasn't come off. Whereas if you look after your cash flow first, you make sure that your liabilities are taken care of, and then you scale up for your deals to get gradually bigger and bigger. It means that you're doing it in a much more sensible way. It's the way that you would build a business in any other business sector. So why wouldn't you do it in property? Well, in property, there is the shiny penny syndrome, isn't there? Everyone gets really excited about that shiny penny and about going for that one big deal because it's got the most zeros after the profit number. Not always the way forward, and it's not always the sensible way to do it. So if you go to our website, which you can see an image of in front of you right now, we've got lots of different arms to our business. but the franchise is the core. It's the first part of Sourced, and it's the core of our whole business. Now, we started in 2017, which was the pilot scheme for Sourced, which was then launched to the public in September 2017. So the franchise business has been going since 2017. We launched our FCA funding platform in August 2018. And all through that time, we were growing our franchise numbers because more and more people were interested in the offering, in the package that we were putting together. We JV'd on a development of 150 million in Manchester, which is on Regent Road in Manchester, in February 2019. That is still being built, still being finished off at the moment. And from our FCA funding platform, we then got registered for ISA and pension funding. So if you've got an ISA or a pension and you want to put it into property, there is a way that you can do that through our peer-to-peer platform. We were raising about £1 million a month come January 2020 for our franchisees deals. So our funding platform was raising about £1 million every month, which was only going into franchisees deals. And we at HQ had an active development pipeline of 8 live projects come April 2020. March 2021, we hit 150 franchisees, and we've only just launched our phone app. So the Sourced property investment app was launched just last month, which you can go to the App Store now, App Store, Android Store, you can download it, and you can see property investment opportunities that our franchisees have found that go onto the app, get launched live on the app every single morning. So what we're going to look at, with all of that experience that we've built up over those years, and me and the other directors of Sourced has been going since 2017, but we've been in property for a long time before 2017. So we've got a huge amount of experience before Sourced as well about how we're looking at property deals. So cash flow first, from income to profit. So the first thing that I wanted to do was to just highlight how long it's taken, or how long it normally takes for a property to go through the conveyancing process. So it, from offer to exchange and from exchange to completion, usually takes from 6 weeks from offer to exchange and 6 weeks to exchange from exchange to completion. Now, at the moment, that's taken about twice as long. So, and that's just because, you know, it's the COVID excuse. It's how busy, how hot the property market is at the moment. It's a lot of different factors that are converging together to make it really difficult to get through conveyancing quickly and efficiently. Now, in terms of doing a deal, in terms of making money out of property, that then affects you, because if you're going to buy a property and then refurbish it and then put it back on the market and sell it, that might now take you twice as long, It'll take you twice as long to buy it at the beginning, and it'll take you twice as long to sell it at the end. So that's going to delay the amount of time, or delay how quickly you can turn that property into money to put into your pocket. And that's just with a bog standard, straightforward flip. It's now taking much, much longer, and that effectively is going to eat into your profits. And it means that you can only do one deal per year instead of 1.5 or 1.7 or 1.8 deals per year, which affects the amount of money that you can earn. Keith, thanks for the message. Yeah, you'll be sent a recording. Just to digress for a second. So the whole conveyancing process is taking you much longer than it had been previously. But some of the things that we can show you mean that you wouldn't even need to go through the conveyancing process, or we can cut down the number of times that you need to go through the conveyancing process in order to make money out of property. Because there are more ways to make money out of property than just simply buying it and then renting it out, or buying it and then flipping it for a higher fee. So that's the first little insight, that it's taking a lot longer to go through conveyancing. So these are the 5 main cash flow strategies that we talk about, that we show our franchisees, that we give them training on, so that they can then put it into practice and build their business properly. The first way that we show them is sourcing and trading on deals. So that would be you going out there, building relationships with estate agents, building relationships with local property people, finding deals that you can turn into a profit. And instead of you making a profit out of it, You then trade that deal onto somebody else and you make a flat fee, say £3,000, £4,000, £5,000. Now, the way that you set that up is really important, because what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're getting paid on exchange. Because if you're getting paid on exchange, it means that you don't have to wait for that property to go all the way through to completion before you get your money. So that's the first one that we're going to look at. And I'll go into a little bit more depth in just a second. Then we're going to look at rent to rent, which is, as you might imagine, renting a property and then renting it onto somebody else. We're going to look at lease options. We're going to look at off-plan sales, and we're going to look at referral commission. So first of all, sourcing and trading deals. It's a really great strategy to get into when you first start, because there's no cash required. You don't need to buy the property. You don't need to pay for the survey. You don't need to do any of those upfront costs, because that's the responsibility of the person that's buying the property. It's your responsibility to go find the property, secure the property, and then find the investor and sell the opportunity to the investor. Now, as you can imagine, it's going to be hard work, because you've got to build relationships with estate agents, you've got to build relationships with vendors, you've got to build relationships with investors. And then it's basically this, you're the conductor of the orchestra, bringing all of these people together in order to purchase that property, and then you get your fee on exchange of contracts. Now, to do this, it is absolutely imperative that you have attention to detail and great customer service. I see a lot of people, because there's zero cash required to get into this, you see a lot of people try to get into this who potentially have not got the right makeup to really make a huge success from sourcing and trading deals. Now, if you have got good customer service skills and if you have got good attention to detail, you can make an absolute killing at sourcing and trading deals. We have a franchisee who makes a huge amount of money every single month from trading deals on, because this kind of thing is absolutely in his makeup. He has great customer service skills, which means that his investors, the guys that buy the properties from him, come back to him time and time and time again. So if he sells 100 property deals, he's probably only selling them to 15 or 20 people. Now, that's a much, much more simple process than having 100 property deals and trying to find 100 people to sell them to. Just out of pure customer service, he's made his life almost 10 times easier. If he also has a good attention to detail, which in this case he does have, it means that when an investor is looking at that deal, they're scrutinizing the actual numbers as good as they can be straight away. Because from the investor's point of view, what they don't want to do is they don't want to dig deeper and find out that the numbers are different, and then dig deeper and find out that there's another cost consideration that hadn't been taken into effect in the numbers, because that just loses the credibility of the deal. If you're accurate, if you can justify your numbers and you've got great customer service, you can make a real go of sourcing and trading deals. One of the great benefits of sourcing and trading deals as well is that you have access to lots of different ways of making deals work. You'll be looking at, if you were going to do a deal yourself, if you were going to do a flip project yourself, you might look to do one a year. But if you're sourcing and trading deals, you could potentially trade on an average of one a week. So it gives you more exposure to more deals, to more structures, to more ways of making deals work, which really boosts your knowledge of property and how to make it work. So like I said, we've got the Sourced Investment Property app. And just in the first 7 days, we had 25,000 property views in the app. And these are only properties that have been found by our franchisees that are put into the app for investors to have a look at, to analyze, and then to take it further forward. You can actually favorite them straight away as soon as you log into the app, and you can contact the franchisee directly through the app in order to reserve that property, to take it forward, to purchase that property. You can see straight away when you look on the app what kind of strategy it is, and you get the main headline numbers immediately as soon as you look on that property. So if you go to, like I said, you can get it in the App Store or you can get it on the Android store. And this is Shaheed. Shaheed sells a huge number of deals in and around Manchester. He can sell 20, 30 deals every single month. Such is his network that he's built up, such is his list of investors, and such is the flow of properties that he has coming into him. So if you can imagine that the fees that he's going to make from each property deal are £3,000, £4,000, £5,000, and he's selling 20 of these deals every single month, that's a huge amount of turnover that he's generating. So the next thing that we're going to look at is rent to rent. I absolutely love rent to rent. It's one of the strategies that I have executed previously. It wasn't my first. It was when I first got into property, I did a couple of straightforward flips, and then I moved into rent to rent when I discovered what it was all about. But I love rent to rent. I think it's absolutely brilliant. One of the reasons that I like rent to rent is everybody hates you. Everybody dislikes what you're doing, what you're trying to do, the whole makeup of your company. They really dislike it. And therefore, rent to rent makes you think very, very seriously about the way that you come across, about the way that you're pitching your product, about the sell that you're using in order to get people interested in rent to rent. It's a really great strategy. I've been through that. I went through a huge amount of time failing at rent to rent before I eventually made it work and started signing properties up to build my cash flow. Now, on average, when I had 6 rent to rents and I was making over £1,000 margin on each one of those properties per month. So that's got all of my bills, all of my outgoings totally taken care of, and then some. And what that did when I was managing those 6 rent to rents, because I managed them myself because there were no HMO letting agents around where I operated my properties, that then freed up my time. Those properties took me 2.5 hours per week to manage, which meant that I had the rest of the week to then build the rest of my property business. I could go out looking at flips. I could look at commercial conversions. I could talk to agents, knowing that my cash flow was taken care of. So the whole premise of rent to rent is that you rent a property from a landlord, and then you rent that property out to somebody else. And when you're renting out to somebody else, you're choosing a higher cash flowing strategy, and you sit in the middle and you make that margin. So the popular ones are serviced accommodation or HMO. So HMO is putting lots of people into the house, selling the rooms, selling the bedrooms individually, and giving them the communal area to live in as well. And serviced accommodation is letting it out for very, very short amounts of time, as little as one night. You probably heard of serviced accommodation from like holiday lets or Airbnb. That's exactly that kind of thing. But the holiday lets and Airbnb market is only one half of the market, because that's just looking at the leisure market. We would also look at the contractors and the professional market as well, because those two markets combined give you a much higher occupancy and it really dramatically increase your chances of making money out of serviced accommodation. So rent to rent, you're taking the property, it's going to be your responsibility to go through those compliance checks to make sure that the property is worthy and suitable for HMO or serviced accommodation. Obviously, there's things like Article 4 that you need to take into consideration, or any other permitted developments or removal of permitted developments that you need to take into consideration. But once it's set up, and rent to rent is very, very intense when you first do it. When you find the property, when you're setting the property up, when you're furnishing the property, when you're getting in the first tenants for the first time, it is intense. But once you're set up, and then maybe one person leaves, but you're going to replace them with somebody else. And then somebody else is going to leave after a couple of months, but again, you're going to replace them with somebody else. It becomes much, much more easy to manage that process and to manage your tenants in that property. So once you're set up, you've just got that cash flow sitting there that is going to keep rolling in month on month. And so long as your systems and processes are top notch, which is the way that we teach our franchisees to do it, then you'll make sure that you're going to be making that rent, and you're collecting your rent on time, and that money is hitting your bank account exactly when it's supposed to hit your bank account. So the great benefit of rent to rent, sort of slightly different to sourcing and trading, because sourcing and trading is you're constantly hustling to find the next deal. You're constantly hustling to find the next investor. With rent to rent, it gives you more time. It gives you more time back to then go and put that time into something else, into finding a big property to flip or finding a commercial conversion. That's what the benefit of rent to rent is over sourcing and trading. Now looking at lease options. Lease options. I mean, we do a 2-day training course just on lease options alone. So we're gonna have a very high level overview here. Lease options basically give you control of a property. A lease options contract is made up of 2 different contracts: a lease contract and an option contract. And it's the option contract, it's the option to purchase contract, that gives you the control over the property. Now, what you can do with the lease option is you can convert, you can take on a property, you can convert the property, or you can refurbish the property because you've got full control over it, or you could just trade the property on in a couple of different ways with an option contract, because you could trade the property on for a sourcing fee, just like trading, or you could trade a property on and make an uplift. So, for example, if you find a property that is worth £100,000, but somebody is willing to sell it for £80,000 because they're motivated, it's a motivated seller, you could then agree to purchase that property from them for £80,000 and then go and sell it to somebody else for £100,000, and you could make that margin. That's the kind of control that option contracts give you. Now, lease options, especially with residential, they're usually used in direct to vendor sourcing. So if you're direct to vendor, if you go through an estate agent, estate agents tend to be reticent about using contracts like option contracts. So just got a message, hang on a second. Okay, so option contracts allow you to take control of the property. If you've got a letter campaign going, if you're going to use social media, which is an absolute killer for finding option deals, anything like that where you're direct to vendor, you're much more likely to be able to use the option contract and all the control that it gives you. So we've actually got an example of an option contract, or a way to use an option contract, which is by something called an assisted sale. And we have a franchisee who has used an assisted sale previously. So let me just go on to this. So this property in the background was found by Nadia, and this was direct to vendor because she actually found at the school gates by talking to some of the other parents that were picking up their kids. Now, there's a long history behind this property and what had happened to the person that owned this property, and unfortunately, he wasn't able to continue to make the mortgage payments, and so he was just about to get repossessed. Nadia came up with a solution whereby she said, well, I'll put my money into the property and I'll refurbish the property, and then we'll sell it, and then the profit that we make will split. So she did that, but instead of putting her own money into it, she actually used money from an investor. So Nadia didn't actually use any of her own money to make this happen either. So she shared her part of the profit with the investor. Having put none of her own money in, she walked away with about £30,000 just from doing this as an assisted sale, and that was secured by an option contract. There were 2 other contracts that she actually used in order to make sure that she could walk away and make sure that she was walking away with her money, which, like I say, we do a 2-day lease option course. So that we would tell all of our franchisees in one of our lease option courses. Next thing that we're going to look at is off-plan sales. Now, if you've seen developments, and they are absolutely everywhere at the minute, developments going up all over the place. Now, the way that off-plan sales are usually structured is that there'll be a master agent who is selling, say, a block of flats that is being built. And that master agent might have agreed an 8% sales commission. So for every flat that they sell, they'll make 8%. Now, if you can get in as the master agent, then fantastic, because, you know, if a flat's worth £200,000, sorry, 8% is 16 grand. So if you're selling one flat, you're making a commission of 16 grand, which is a very, very healthy amount of money. But what's more likely to happen is there'll be a master agent that has got control of the blocks, and then you'll be the sub-agent underneath the master agent, and they'll agree to split their commission with you 50-50. So you might get 4%. They might negotiate you down. It might be 3%, might be 2%, but it's usually about half, about 4%. So if you're going to get 4% sales commission, the master agent will get 4% sales commission, and that's how they've divvied up their 8% total. So it would be your responsibility to go out there and sell the flats that you have responsibility for. So if that master agent has got a full block, they might give you a floor of 5 flats. So they're your 5 flats. Please go out there and sell those 5 flats. Now, the great thing about off-plan sales, once you've found that buyer, they then reserve the property and they've got 28 days to exchange. So they have to pay a reservation fee of, let's say, £2,000, £3,000 or £4,000. They then get 28 days to get to exchange. And then you get paid on exchange. So your 4% that you're going to get will come after that buyer has exchanged contract. So if you went out today and you found a buyer for an off-plan flat, if they put down their reservation fee today, you know that they've got 28 days to exchange and you're going to get paid within those 28 days. Now, that's a phenomenal way to generate cash flow from property, because most property, I mean, look at the conveyancing process for something that you want to buy. Like I said, it was 6 weeks to offer to exchange and 6 weeks from exchange to completion. But at the moment, it's double that. So that's 24 weeks before you get you get control of that property. And then you've got to refurb it, and then you've got to sell it again. Off-plan sales, it's not 24 weeks, it's 28 days before you get paid. It's a phenomenal thing. It's a phenomenal process. And it's something that more people should look into instead of just going straight forward into sourcing and trading properties on. It's a very specific mailing list that you need to build up, but you can do that on your own. You're not just competing with these big boys that have got, thousands of pounds to spend on their mailing list. If you make 1 or 2 sales per year, you're going to be, if you make 2 sales per year, you're going to be earning more than the average income in the UK. And then what will happen at that point onwards is that you go through it, or your buyer goes through exchange, and then they'll complete when the build is complete, because they're obviously not able to complete and take out a first charge on that flat until the building is actually finished. So you can look at blocks of flats, you can look at big developments, or you can look at smaller things. If you've got developers near you, and this is one of our franchisees, Jamie, and he is a developer. He's done 3 developments, which we funded for him this year. And he sells them off plan. He sells them off plan, and he uses local agents to sell these deals off plan for him. And he offers them a great commission for selling those deals off plan. So it's not just the kind of thing where you see it in central London, central Manchester, central Birmingham. These kind of deals are absolutely everywhere. And you should, it's in your interest to go and talk to developers, talk to people that are building just small units of 1, 2, or 3 brand new houses, to see if there's something that you can do. Because if they know that they've got their units sold, you've solved a huge headache for them. Now looking at referral commission. So our franchisees are actually able to earn referral commission from sourced capital. And the way that they do that is if they introduce anybody that's going to invest into sourced capital, our franchisees get a referral fee. One of our franchisees in 1 month earned £9,000 in referrals for bringing people over to sourced capital that put their money into deals. But that's not the only way that you can earn referral commission. You can also earn referral commission by raising money for people. So I know one of our franchisees is really, really good at going out, networking, talking to people and raising money. Now, they're not so interested in finding property deals. They're really excited by going out and talking to people and introducing them, basically being an introducer into the right kind of deal for that person. And there are lots of developers out there that can't do that. So that then gives them an opportunity, because that means that that person, that franchisee, can build up relationships with lots of different people that have got access to funding, access to money. And then that franchisee can work with those people that have got money, and they can cherry pick which deals they want to get involved in. Do they want to get involved in deals and be the introducer and make an introduction fee, or do they want to get involved in deals and make it and JV with people? Because it's down to them. What you tend to find is there are people out there that can find deals. They go out there, they put the deals together, they make it, they do all the numbers, they make it all happen, and then they realize that they need to borrow a little bit more money. And at that point, they're stuck because they're not so good at going out, networking, building relationships with these high net worth individuals. So that's when somebody can earn a referral commission by being the solution to that problem, bringing somebody in, and then making that deal go ahead. Now, when you're looking at your pipeline, I show this slide on pretty much every single webinar that I do. Building your pipeline, it is really, really important that you do it properly, because if you start at the left-hand side, you start on small chunks of money, and you start on regular small chunks of money. And once you've got that part of it systemized and processed, you then move on to the orange in the middle. And the orange in the middle, bigger chunks of money, going to take you longer to get to, but you've always got the gray side, you've always got the small chunks of money to rely on if some of these orange sections fall through. And then once you've built that pot of money, you then move over onto the blue side on the right-hand side, which is the big pots of money, the commercial deals, the new build deals, that kind of thing. And just from a fairly modest timeline like that, over the course of a year, you can still earn a huge amount of money. If you get hoodwinked by the shiny penny syndrome and you just go after that big blue section on the right-hand side, then the chance of you getting to the end of that section and still being with your head above water is not as good as if you build your cash flow, you build your pipeline correctly, and then you go after the big deal later on down the line. Because £213,000 is still a lot of money, and I'd much rather take £213,000 than zero. Now, one of the other things that you can do while you're building your cash flow is, a lot of people get worried that they're going to be missing out on deals. So one of the things that we do with our franchisees is while you're building your cash flow, while you're building your business correctly, you could then, if you find a deal that is too big for you to do at the moment, it's not part of your plan for the next 18 months, 24 months, you can bring that deal to us at HQ and we'll JV with you. We'll JV, cut you into the deal, make sure that you're still involved, you're still learning from the deal, not just earning from the deal. And then you can continue to build your cash flow while we're taking care of the headache of doing that development. Now, we've got a huge amount of experience at HQ. We're going to share everything with you that of that deal, share the risk, share the profits with you, and we can help fund the upfront costs for that deal as well. Not only do we have funding where we've got funding for the purchase price and the conversion costs, but if there's any planning involved, if there's any upfront costs, if there's SDLT, if there's SIL or S106, then we can help fund those costs as well. And this is exactly what one of our franchisees did, Chris Richardson. He came into this. He found this property in Bournemouth and we JV'd with him. It was his first ever property deal. 14 flats we made out of that deal. And that one is finished now, the one in Bournemouth. And this is Jason Kay's deal, commercial to residential conversion in Hull. And we've just agreed to go ahead with this. We've just exchanged on this. I think it was either last week or the week before we've exchanged on this one. So we're still looking for more deals, more projects like this. And I think this is going to be the biggest deal that Jason's done as well. He lives in Hull, so he's going to be down at the site very, very frequently, learning and keeping his eye on what's going on. Now, we teach our franchisees to do all of the strategies that I've just shown you, including the commercial conversions. And whether you're going to do commercial conversions now or whether you're going to do it in a year's time, you can still come onto the training and learn about it. We have a hybrid structure where we've got online training and we've got in-person training. And we're going to continue to do the online training and the in-person training all the way through next year, because some people learn online better than in person and some people learn in person better than online. But we want to be as comprehensive as we can to make sure that everybody has as much information as they have, like I said at the beginning, so that people can make decisions like we make decisions. Now, when you're looking at your cash flow and what you should go for, what you should focus on, and which cash flow strategy is better for you, it's not just about looking at how much money you've got in your pocket and how quickly you need to earn. It's a case of looking at the market conditions, the lending conditions, your personal situation and your financial situation, your experience, and what you're trying to get out of it. Because if we understand that, and that's something that your support person will go through with you, they'll try and understand exactly how you're making decisions so that you can come up with a plan with them in order to become successful. But your support person sits down with you, they have this conversation with you, and then you create a plan that you then need to follow and they will hold you accountable to. So we've got 150 offices around the country. We've got events that we put on all around the country for our franchisees. Our franchisees collaborate with each other. They network with each other, and then we have funding that they've got access to. And the funding is up to 100% of the purchase price and the refurb cost. This is Pete from Manchester. He's one of the people that's borrowed money from our funding platform. Just going to put you on mute for a second because I need to cough. And what we do, not only do we provide the funding, not only do we provide the training, but we also provide the leads. So we have a lead system called Escudo, and Escudo takes all the data from the market and it puts it through a series of algorithms, and the algorithms then analyze those deals for you. They're like the first level of analysis, whereby they look at the floor plans, they look at the square meterages, they look at how big the bedrooms need to be, they look at how big the communal areas need to be, and they can assess whether it's going to work as a HMO. They can also assess whether it's going to work as a rent-to-rent property, and they can also assess whether commercial conversions are going to work. So we provide these leads for you once they've already been through a level of due diligence, which means that the likelihood of them coming off is better than if you just go and find a deal online for yourself. So we do this for our franchisees in order to make their time more efficient. As well as that, we have over 100,000 investors registered on our database. And like I said, we have a lot of training events that are repeated all the time, so that if you miss it this time, you can catch up with it next time. Or if you go to it this time, but you feel like you need to go to it again because it was on a deeper level than you think you understood, then you can jump onto the training courses as many times as you wish. So the initial franchise investment, if you wanted to become a Source franchisee, not only do you get the brand exposure, and Source is a very well-known brand around the UK now in the property investment market, you also receive your exclusive territory. You come to HQ here in Warrington for your induction training. You've got a proven business model, and you've got experts in-house at Source to help you put that proven business model into practice. And you can learn from the mistakes that we've made. And all the teachings that we have at HQ are based on avoiding the mistakes that we've made, and making good decisions that have served us in the past. And that's £12,500 plus VAT. There's then a license fee, and that license fee is payable every month because that's the franchise makeup. And in that license fee, you get your property leads, you get your investor leads, you get access to online training 24/7, you get access to use and promote your properties on our investment app. You get weekly local events and support days in your area. You've got access to the peer-to-peer platform. You've got face-to-face training events. You've got SIN management if you want to host any networking events, and you've got legal documents. And that costs £200 per month. And then if you make any profit, we'd ask for 5% of your net profit. Now, if you put all of those things together, if you look at face-to-face training events, if you look at property leads, if you look at investor leads, if you look at CRM systems, if you look at going to networking events and hosting networking events, that whole package, if you were going to replicate that in a month, could cost you around £5,100 to replicate something like that. And we give it to you guys for £200 per month. And don't forget, you can book off that as many times as you want to for those training events. You then have a dedicated support person. Your support person works in your local area, and your support person is there to help you be successful. That is the job role of your support person. They're there to help you be more successful, whether you're just starting out, whether you've been in property for many, many years. So there'll be lots of local small support days, local small groups. Your support person will analyze all of your deals for you that you put into our CRM system. There'll be monthly face-to-face training events. There's Zoom meetings happening all the time. There's one-to-one visits if you need some help directly in your patch. They'll be able to suggest different ways of structuring and packaging your deals to make sure that your deals are going to work and be as effective as they possibly can be. And they will be there to mentor and guide you. As part of a large franchise, we also have some tie-ins with some big companies, which give us discounts for you guys to use their software. So we have some direct-to-vendor marketing software called Loop, and we have Land Insight, which is a tool to help you analyze and find property deals. 50% off for Land Insight and 30% off for Loop, just by being a source franchisee. We also have a tie-in with SDL Auctions. So SDL Auctions will actually come to your induction and they talk to you about the benefits of auctions. They talk to you about how auctions work, and you then get access to their back end platform, their systems and processes. So if you have a property that you want to put through the auction, you can list it with them and you can get paid your commission within 7 days of that property selling. We encourage our franchisees to get involved with as many different things that we put on as they possibly can. Weekly webinars, weekly one-to-ones, group sessions, training sessions, source capital webinars, weekly group Zooms, meetings and sessions. So all of our franchisees have access to their support person's Calendly link, and they can book into their calendar as often as they want to in order to have meetings and catch-ups and look for help and advice. So they're the 5 ways that you can make cash flow. They're the ways that we help our franchisees understand those 5 ways of making cash flow, and we help them put it into practice through our support network and through our experience in the property sector. So I'll hang around for a couple of minutes now. If anyone's got any questions, then please feel free to ask any questions. Are these lease options part of how an assisted sale works? Yes, Lily, they are. That is exactly right. There are 3 contracts involved in an assisted sale, or there can be 3 contracts involved in an assisted sale. The way that we do it, the way that we would recommend to do it, is with a lease option with an option contract. It doesn't have to be a lease option contract because you don't necessarily need the lease element of the contract, but you do need the option agreement, because the option part of the contract stops that person from being able to sell it to anybody else. You're the only person, or the person that owns that contract is the only person that can buy that contract. And it'll be time bound, it'll be time bound for a month, 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, whatever you can agree with that person. But yes, an option contract is absolutely part of an assisted sale. Any other questions at all before I jump? Dan, the £12,500 is paid up front before you come on the initial induction training. You have a finite number of franchisees. How do you allocate where the franchisee is? Yeah, that's a good question. So it's based on postcodes, Helen. 40,000 households are in a postcode area for a franchisee. So depending on where you are, you might want to get in touch. So there's an email address just at the bottom here, which is franchise@source.co. We've got an induction training actually happening at the end of November. And then that's going to be the last induction training for 2021. So if you are interested, then I'd encourage you to get in touch with franchise@source.co, and you can find out how many people are in your local area, if any at all. Can you claim back VAT? You can claim back VAT if you're VAT registered, Seb. Yes. David, so yeah, that's a good question. So the minimum management service fee is £12.50 plus VAT per 6 months. And yes, it is. No, it's not irrespective of turnover, because it's a minimum service fee. So if you've done some deals and you've made some profit and you've paid your 5%, then that comes out of that £12.50. So if you traded deals on and you've made £200 or £300 contribution as the 5% over a number of months, that is taken off the £12.50, because the £12.50 is a minimum amount. Can franchisees access the peer-to-peer lending for assisted sales refurbs? Would the first charge still apply? I really like questions like this because there is no very clear answer to this question. So it depends on the situation. Now, usually when you look at an assisted sale, the person that you're doing the assisted sale with, the vendor, has got a first charge on the property. If they have a first charge, then you won't be able to borrow from peer to peer because they've already got a first charge. Unless you can replace that first charge with peer-to-peer lending. Now, that would assume that you're going to have the compliance of the person that owns the property. So it's easier to just say that in general terms, you can't borrow money for an assisted sale from Source Capital because they require a first charge. But just like Nadia's example that I told you about during the presentation, she went to an investor and that investor secured her money against that property in a different way that wasn't a first charge. And we showed her how to do that. She did that in such a way that the investor was happy that her money had the necessary security, and it then gave Nadia the money in order to go and do that assisted sale. It's a great example of a situation where it's a really hard thing to teach you that in a classroom. It's far easier to talk you through it with a real life example, because it's all about that first charge and who has that security of ownership of the property. So generally speaking, you can't borrow from Source Capital. There are some occasions in which you can, depending on the compliance of the vendor, but you could always borrow money from different sources that allow you to do that deal. Is there any opportunity to run this demo again? I'm planning to share it with my business partner. So you'll actually get a recording of this, so you'll be able to share that recording with them. Can you give me the Loop and Land Insight retail rates? You can just jump onto their websites and find out what their retail rates are. Their retail rates are fairly transparent. So just head over there, David. Do you line up the investor, especially in the early days? You're going to have to clarify that one, if that's okay. I'm not sure what you mean by line up the investor. So if you could just expand on that a little bit so that I can answer you more thoroughly, that would be great. Okay, so if you're interested in investors, what you should do is you should advertise you should find a property and advertise that property out. We'll advertise that property out to our investor lists and we'll generate investors for you. Those investors will come through to you. So those investors have been qualified twice. The first time that they were qualified was by coming onto our email lists. The second time they're qualified is on the email list, they've seen your deal and they've responded to your deal. So you know that that person is interested in that kind of property in the area that you're advertising it right now. So we give you a number of investors, however many people inquire about your deal. And then it's over to you to build those relationships with them to see how you can work together. Because it's not just about buying that property, it's about buying the next 10 properties. It's about JVing with that person, depending on what they're looking for out of property. The point is that we find people that are interested in property investment and have got money in their pockets, and we introduce them to you. At that point, we've been nearly an hour now, so I'm going to jump off. This is the email address, franchise@source.co. If you've got any questions, please feel free to get in touch. But thanks very much for spending the afternoon with me, and no doubt I will speak to you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.